Yes, please proceed,
Oh,
please.
yeah, thank you, thank you. So, very good morning to all the students. It's been a pleasure to always come to Tamil Nadu and speak to the students, and like we have always had a very interactive session. So, once we complete from our end our presentation part, I think I would request all of you to, put your questions in the chat box, or maybe you can put it down and keep it like for the later part. So, my presentation will be between 35 to 45 minutes, and I would like to basically take you on a journey where you would be learning the various aspects of how our origin has come into being. We as human beings, how did we take our present shape, and how are we there as of now. And then if there are any evidence of any extraterrestrial life forms or any other things for that matter. To start with, this is one of the quotations that I would like to share with all of you. So it states that in the whole of universe, it's very terrifying to understand that if we are the only living organisms as of now, and if we are not the only living organism, then what are the other possibilities that exist, right? So keeping this particular thing in mind, it's very interesting to understand that you know people have been exploring different kinds of life forms from quite ago, from quite a time. So let's head back to the history of um, the whole universe. And as we all know, that the Big Bang theory is one of the theories that is basically focusing on how our existences have come into being. And as you can see on the slide, uh, our existence was dated to be around 14 billion years ago, and our Earth, the life form on our Earth, it's stated to be around 4 billion years ago. But the interesting part is around 4 billion years ago, we are talking about the existence of not the human beings, but we're talking about the existence where it started or initiated with the life forms of dinosaurs, right? We all know about dinosaurs. We have read about it, the different forms of dinosaurs, and and because of one single asteroid, that their whole life form went extinct from the planet. And after 1 or 2 billion years ago, that's how we as human beings, our existence came into being, and we are there, and we can interact with each other, and we can see how we have been formed and what is our shape and structure and everything. So as of today, as of now, we are all connected through a satellite medium. We are able to talk to each other. And then many years back, many people have dedicated their life towards finding the achievements or the discoveries that they were able to do. Starting back in 384 BC, uh, uh, Aristotle, he started and he gave the concept that in the solar system, it is the Earth that is at the center. And during his time, he was quite advanced, because other scientists or philosophers or great thinkers were not able to think on that level or on that aspect. But Aristotle was able to give a lot of insights and thoughts on those aspects. And there was a long period of time where other scientists or other physicists or philosophers were not able to take much deep dive into this kind of space exploration program. But then again, interestingly, Galileo, as we all know, that he was the one who worked on the telescope. So he came up with a concept that, and he basically redefined the solar system, saying that whatever Aristotle mentioned regarding the origin or regarding the center of the solar system, it's not true, because the sun is at the center of the solar system, and all the other planets or satellites are actually revolving around the sun. And that's how this whole solar system has been formed. Then Isaac Newton came ahead with his own physics theory, the basic laws of motion. And keeping those laws of motion in life and in consideration, Wright brothers were able to design the first flight. We all know that the ones who invented aeroplanes, or who invented flight crafts and all. So it's the credit goes to Wright brothers, and they were not the only one who have done this, but they were the first who were able to successfully run a gasoline propelled engine, and they were able to fly for around 15 minutes in their hometown. So you can see there's a huge number of years that has been passed, but in the recent last 50 years, I would say lot of achievements or a lot of accomplishments have been carried out. And to start with, we all know that if we have to fly to space, we have to have a lot of propulsion or a lot of engine. And to supply that amount of engine, we would be requiring rockets that has been filled up with gasoline, or that has been filled up with any of the reactive elements that can boost the whole rocket. And to escape the gravity of the planet, it requires a great amount of energy. So you can see on the left side, there's a photograph that is the actual photograph that's taken in Germany while they were working on their rocket technology. And on the left, that is one of the restored models that's been kept in one of the islands in Germany. It's called Penemunde Island. It's also called a space island or space museum. So there you can find a lot of evidences as to how the whole flight missions were carried out, or the experimentation, or the initial phases that were carried out during Hitler's time, because these rockets were supposed to be used for war purpose, but then for some reason it did not quite fulfill the war objectives. But then again, after the World War II, they were converted to different other studies, and they were put into consideration for space exploration. So the rocket name is V2, and it's considered to be the first rocket to reach space. And most of the philosophers and thinkers or educators, they say that V2 is a rocket, and that once V2 was launched in the space, that is where the space education or the space exploration program basically initiated. Because before that, none of the objects were able to reach to that height. And just for a fun fact, I would like to share is that when you talk about space or the sky, and when you talk about like crossing the Earth's gravitational pull, so what is the basic length that we're talking about? Or like supposedly aeroplanes also fly in the sky, rockets also, they go in the sky. So what is the level till which they can reach? So the commercial flights that we all take, when we travel from, maybe like from Chennai, we go to Bangalore, from Bangalore Delhi. So the flights basically travel to a height of maybe around, let's say, around max to max 13 kilometers. Above that, around 17 to 19 kilometers is where the fighter flights, planes, and other war machines, they can fly to. And rockets have to fly to a average height of around 100 kilometers to exit the Earth's atmosphere. So after 100 kilometers, or if we talk about 100 kilometers above the sea level, that's where the Kármán line exists. So that is where it's kind of a barrier. If you can cross 100 kilometers above the sea level, so you can reach the space, and then you will not have to spend so much of fuel to further propel yourself, because you can use solar energy to navigate yourself from one point to another in space thereafter. Uh, Talking about space, the whole story of space exploration is incomplete if we do not take into consideration the achievements of Apollo 11 mission, where they were able to land two of the astronauts on the surface of the moon. And as the famous quotation goes by Neil Armstrong, that's one small step for a man, one giant leap for mankind. So we are all aware about this particular statement, and we know that how this statement has motivated all the space enthusiasts in India and all the other countries abroad. And we also have to understand that why is it important for us to carry our history? Because we are no one if we do not take into consideration the achievements or the accomplishment or the hard work and dedication that's been put up by a lot of wonderful individuals. And we have to learn a lot of life lessons from them. It's very important. And Apollo 11, as a numeric number 11 stands, they were before 11 came into being, there were another 10 flight missions that were taken in on the surface of the moon. A lot of rovers were landed on the surface of the moon. So a lot of experiments have already been tested, and that's how NASA was like, they were sure that they would be able to land someone on the surface of the moon. So a lot of experimentation happens. So even in grade 9 and 10, if you go to your science lab, you'll understand that most of the times your experiments that you try to go ahead, it doesn't come as you expect. So that's the interesting thing. You have to keep on experimenting. You have to like try different means of getting a result. And if you know where is the objective, definitely you can reach that. So In this coming slide, we are talking about two of the interesting projects that the space community has taken into consideration now, and it's been there for quite some time. Exhibit A, the image A, the image with the alphabet A. So that we are seeing the Hubble telescope in action. So exhibit B is basically the photograph that's taken, and this is one of the photographs or images that's taken by the Hubble telescope. And the Hubble telescope is the largest telescope or free floating telescope in the space that is responsible to gather amazing photographs of the whole universe or the galaxy to which it can reach out, because the whole universe it's not possible, but to some extent definitely we can reach out or we can see the images, and Hubble telescope is responsible for just that. In Exhibit C, you can see this is space probe. Its name is Voyager 1. And in this image, you can see that there is a red marking where it's written Voyager 1. So basically, Voyager is a space probe that has left the solar system. And in 2012, it has left. So it's been 8 years that it has left the solar system. And the interesting part is Voyager 1 is sent out, out of our solar system just to study all the other extraterrestrial beings or any other life forms that might exist beyond our reach if we have not seen them. And this Voyager might be able to detect some of these like radioactive waves, or maybe some of these mechanical waves, any of these waves or images or evidences for that matter. That's how it why Voyager 1 and Voyager 2 were designed initially. Talking from a biological point of view about the existence or about the formation of life forms, the simple three ingredients that includes are energy, organic molecules, and liquid water. That means if we have these three ingredients, definitely there is a high possibility of the existence of life forms, and that is the reason why today's space exploration programs, when they are looking for aliens, they are definitely looking for places where there is a presence of water. So when scientists and different like physicists and biologists and chemists, they studied the formation of life forms on our planet of Earth, it was found that the life form started in our planet in the molten state, or let's say it started in the lava state. That's where the protein molecules that they came ahead, and they formed the life, and that's how the basic building block, that is the cell, it created, and from cell the multi cells came in. That's how tissue culture started, and that's how the life form took some shape in different ways. From land it started, the mammal started going to the land. From there on, the chimpanzees and other ape families started, and that's how we got our current structure. We are talking about a 1 billion years journey from that point where it started. So since our own life form was, it began from a liquid medium that was there, so scientists have been trying to find out or figure out what are the other planets that have a presence of water. And in the slide you can see there are four photographs or four evidences or four planets that have evidence of water: Kepler 62f, Kepler 22, K2 18b, TRAPPIST 1d, and T Garden b. These have high possibility of water vapors and water being present in these planets, and these are the planets that the scientists are trying to find more evidence. And maybe in the future we do not know what it lies, but definitely it's going to be interesting to find out if these planets also are trying to reach out to us, or maybe there are other life forms that we can interact with. If you're following the recent news, then you might have come across that recently Perseverance, one of the interplanetary mission that was taken out by NASA, has landed on the surface of Mars just a few days back, and it has started sending images. So right now NASA has around 4 rovers that's operating over there, and all these rovers are sent for a very important reason, because once it's so believed that Mars was also a planet like Earth, but due to some reason it has become more desertified. There is very less evidence of any water molecule being present there. And unlike Earth, because the core of our Earth, it has a molten solid, very hot liquid that is being present. But in Mars, it has a very liquid metal that's present, and that's the reason why the temperature on Mars is very cold. It's not bearable by any human being for that matter. It's extremely cold because of the inner cold metal in the liquid form that exists inside Mars. So scientists wanted to study, and when they tried to study the soil proportion and the elements that are present in the soil of Mars, they have found that there are certain areas on our planet, there are certain soil or sand types that are present on our planet. Let's take, for example, California is one of the places in the US. So the soil properties of California and the soil properties of Mars are similar. So it gives us an understanding that if that is the case, then definitely there would be some form of life form that is existing as of now as well. But it's just, like we are not yet able to discover it, but definitely very soon we are going to discover that, and it's maybe in the coming days we might have come across different amazing evidences from there. Next, I would like to share you some of the photographs that's been taken by Curiosity, Opportunity rovers on Mars by NASA. So these are a few of the photographs that you can see on the screen, and this pretty much resembles that there might have been some oceans there. There might have been some, hills over there, and this is the reason why it's so compelling for all the scientific community to focus on the point of such a environment or such a possibility of life forms being exist over there. And as showed you some of the photographs of Mars, and that resembles the Earth. Then I showed you some of the photographs of other planets like Kepler and T-Garden and TRAPPIST. Those resembles the presence of water. So in that way, scientists have been, like trying to find out an approximate possibility of how many planets that might be present in our Milky Way. So in our Milky Way, in our galaxy, it is so assumed that there are around 50 billion planets that resembles Earth in some way or the other. And just imagine that somehow or the other there's a huge, definitely there's a possibility of other life forms that we are not familiar with, but there is a huge possibility of life forms being present on those Earth-like planets. uh, as school students, or as even as any comic lover would say, aliens, we dream about it. War of the Worlds is one of the very interesting comic that came into being, and it was written by H.G. Wells. So War of the Worlds was one of the first, I would say, comic that kind of gave a perspective to the human beings or to the human minds, or the possibility of what an alien might look like. But interestingly, there are a lot of other evidences that have come, and those shows that it's not might resemble to how the War of Worlds, they're depicting or they're sketching the alien to be. But in either way, all the possibilities are welcoming, and it's very interesting on all the levels, right? Moving forward, I would like to present before you four of the photographs, and I would like all of you to think for a moment that out of these four photographs, A, B, C, and D, that I'll be presenting to you now, which one photograph or which of these photographs are fake? So out of these four photographs that I'll be presenting to you now, one or more than one photographs are real, one or more than one photographs are not real. So you don't have to answer this to me, but you just think for a moment and try to find out which one of these might look like an alien. Just think for yourself. It's more like a self introspection part. Just ask yourself that out of these photographs, is it A or is it B that looks like somewhat like fish? Is it C that looks somewhat like coral reef? Or is it D that looks somewhat like ground jellyfish? So I'll just give you like few seconds for that time, for that matter, and just think from your end, out of these A, B, C, and D, which one of these do you think are not real? Which one of these do you think are computer generated or are made in computers? And you'll be amazed to see that like how much of the planets of our own Earth we have not explored, right? So let's take another few seconds. Just think for a moment: is it A, B, or C, and or D that is not real? Or like, because I think that greenish somewhat looks like a coral reef, but again C also looks like a coral reef, and B looks like a fish, D looks like a jellyfish. So How what are the similarities that you can find with your existing knowledge of animals or any living organisms, and try to relate with this? So a few seconds to all of you. So if you figured out, I would like to share with you the one photograph that is not real. So the photograph that is not real or which is computer generated is photograph or exhibit number C, because that particular photograph, it do resembles like a coral reef, but it's not. So A is a coral reef, B is found in Mariana Trench, and D as well, crown jellyfish also is another interesting animal that is found in the Mariana Trench. So moving forward, when we talk about journeys that one person take, or if you might have a lot of role models, right? So what is a common attribute or behavior that is similar in all of your role models? And I think intellectual curiosity is one of the basic traits that is similar in all of these role models. And when we talk about intellectual curiosity, we're basically trying to understand that how much of those minds or young minds were curious. But it's not only enough to be curious, you have to be able to do your research, you have to be able to do your own findings, and you have to dedicate your own separate time to follow your passion. So at your age in grade 9 and 10, it might so happen that you have so many things to do, and you have a different focus in life. You want to do this, but your parents are saying you should do that. So how to deal with that? So those questions also, if you want, I can address after this official session is over. We can talk about that as well. And some of the brilliant minds that I take as a role model when I talk about space technology. And to start with, Elon Musk, we all know the founder of Tesla, the founder of Gigafactory, the founder of SpaceX. He is planning to send people to Mars in the next. I do not know when he's planning, but maybe in the next 2 to 5 to 10 years, he's planning to send people on the planet of Mars. Then Virgin Galactic is another uh, individual led company that has been popularizing or working a lot on the space exploration, and they are planning to offer space tourism, so you can take a whole round of the planet and you can come back. It's going to be a costly one though, but nonetheless, for the ones who have money, definitely it's going to be a very interesting journey ahead. Blue Origin, led by Jeff Bezos, who is a founder of Amazon as well. So Blue Origin basically wants to, have a spacecraft that is floating in this free space, maybe between Earth and Moon, and he wants to colonize people and have a huge own Amazon city over there. So that's his plan. I do not know how he's going to do it, but that's how they're planning. Among the ambitious plans by different countries, UAE has a plan to send around 600,000 people on the surface of Mars. That's a very ambitious project, but we have 100 years ahead. So they are targeting to get it done by 2117, 2000, like we are in 2021. So less than 100 years. But let's see how far they go, but it's going to be very interesting. But the work on this particular project has already began in Dubai. So if you want to check out more of this information, you can just Google them out. Emirates Mars mission or UAE Mars mission or UAE Space Agency. Just go through that once. Um, Talking about myself, my journey a bit, because you might be interested in what are the activities that I have come across and how am I able to fulfill my dream about going for different space programs. So I was working in NASA for different of the activities. Some of the projects I'm not able to share with you in a public domain for some non-disclosure agreements, but some of the projects that I worked on was where on the flight planes. Then we were also asked to look for extraterrestrial beings. So alien hunting, let's say, where some of the interesting topics we were working on, studying a lot of the planets was there in our program modules. Then we also worked on how to fly planes and stuff like that, because I like flying planes. So that definitely had to be, that was one of my to-do list activities. So I had got the opportunity to complete that. And my guide, who took the whole journey along with me, or who basically mentored me, is Ralph Hackel. He's based out of Germany. So, I got wonderful opportunities to work under him and have a wonderful time there, and, get to learn a lot of things. I never worked with ISRO as such, but I have high regards for ISRO, and even NASA has high regards for ISRO and the activities that the Indian space community has been doing for quite a long time. I might be from NASA. I might have worked, for some time over there. Now I'm based out of India. I'm engaged in multiple activities here, because at the end, you have to understand that your country is the best for whatever you do, and you have a obligation towards your country as well. And before reaching out to NASA, I was also, a space or an innovator. So I have been innovating a lot of things. I have a lot of awards to my name, and I'm just sharing two photographs from two of our wonderful individuals, late Dr. APJ Abdul Kalam. We all know him, and late Pranab Mukherjee sir as well. So these two of the former presidents, I was able to receive awards from them, and it was a wonderful, I would say, experience thereafter. And when any of the youths or any of the young minds or any of the curious minds for that matter, they ask me, like, what keeps you going, right? What's the motivation behind your, like, uninterrupted dedication towards working in space technology and other fields? I find that when you look up to the sky, there is a billion possibilities, and sky or space is one area where there is no politics. So International Space Station, if you look up carefully, there are people from China, there are people from, like Russia, there are people from US, from Canada, and name any other continents for that matter. Everyone works there together. We might have political differences on our planet. We might have international sea disputes, land disputes, but on the space, I have not seen any such disputes as such. And as human beings, we're always curious, and that curiosity has been driving the whole space community of 194 countries who have signed the Outer Space Treaty in 1964 in United Nations. So that is a basic, I would say, guideline for which all our space communities are working together. And in IDYM itself, we have so many of the people who have their experience from the space background. The interesting thing is that one question that might be coming to all of your mind is that, is it necessary for all of you to take up only technical, like very traditional technical courses to be in the space technology domain? It's not necessary, because when you talk about the 571 people who have reached out to space till date, there are only 571 people who are able to, go to International Space Station or have landed on the moon or have taken a journey in the space. Most of them might be from a technical background, but there are many examples who are not at all, from the technical background. As astronauts, they always look into a diversified profile. So if you're planning to be an astronaut or maybe from any of the space organizations, it's not necessary that you have to be from a specific domain, but you have to have the basic knowledge. You should have a lot of endurance of mind. Physical strength is one of the important key element. You should be able to handle stress, because in space, just imagine if your oxygen mask or your oxygen starts leaking out, and you get stressed out, you will not be able to find a solution, because there might be a situation where you might not know how to deal with, but you have to come across and face those situations. So that's pretty much from the I would say official presentation part from my end, but I would be happy to maybe address few questions, maybe not now, but if we have any other people speaking, any of the speakers coming in from IDYM, if there is then I'll be able to address a few questions from your end. So Raviji, is it any other speaker from our end, if there is anyone coming in?